Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, what we're going to look at in this video is I'm going to read out to you what happened today in the trial of the monster dads, the Pinocchio dads, whatever you want to call them, the adoptive parents of this absolute, just let me turn the sound down on this, of this absolutely adorable 13-month-old baby, who sadly, he's frozen in time at 13 months old. There won't be any more adoption process with these two, I call them dads because what else can I call them? They were trying to be his dad at least, but they weren't his dads. Thing is, dad is a title that you earn, isn't it? Just because you're the biological dad doesn't mean you're a dad. Deadbeat dads out there, aren't there? Loads of deadbeat dads who don't even contribute anything towards their children's either financially or spiritually or emotionally. So being a dad is a title that you have to earn, isn't it? So they were applying to be his dads. They were his perspective through the process. But I don't think, I call them monster dads. I don't know what to call them really, to be honest. Well, there's a few things I'd like to call them, but I can't say them on YouTube. Anyway, so let's have a look at the two dads. So we've got Jamie Varley on the left, when the picture finally comes up. Oh, it's going to be one of those everything freezes days, I suppose. Yeah, so we've got Jamie Varley, the tall guy on the left there. Look at the size of him. How could he hurt a little baby? Great big, bloody, horrible person. Anyway, he's a teacher, or he was a teacher, head teacher. I'd like to have a look at where he worked at some point, but anyway, not today. I won't have time. He and the other dad, John, his partner, John GF, they are accused of various crimes against this lovely little baby, ranging from sort of neglect to sex abuse, various things that they're being accused of. And we listened to Jamie Varley's defence, and John has been speaking in his defence the last couple of days, and today concluded John's defence. John's defence concluded today, and that's what I'm going to read to you, what was said, being cross-examined by the prosecution lawyer, Mr. Wright, of all names. And what's the jury made of it all? So Varley's defence is finished. GF's defence is finished. And although the jury's not been sent out yet for deliberation, I don't think it'll be long there. I would imagine that maybe quite soon they will be sent out for deliberation. I don't know what other evidence is due to be presented, but don't with the mushroom murderer trial, wasn't it? So yeah, this is Preston. I like to imagine him now. I hope to God, this is where he is now, in heaven, being looked after much better than he was looked after by these horrible men. Because you know what, even if you take away the sex allegations. It is, I think, obvious from the evidence that's been presented so far. These men didn't really care about Preston. Preston was just, I don't think his welfare was ever uppermost in their mind. And I do think that is clear from the photos, the videos, etc., the testimonies. As to whether he was deliberately red-rummed, perhaps not, probably not even, but it still was the acts of negligence and abuse that led to little Preston breathing his last at only 13 months old. Now, this happened a couple of years ago. People have been asking in the chat, and I'm not certain really why it took so long to bring this case to trial. Probably because of the volume of evidence, maybe. There's loads and loads of videos. Take a case that in prosecution service and security, genuinely, I do not know why it's took, I think it's 2 or at least 2, if not 3 years. I think this was 2023, this all happened. And it happened just after Preston's birthday, and Preston's 4th birthday is coming up, and there's going to be a vigil for him, and we will be covering that. I will be covering that. Definitely, on the day, that's what's for candles to be lit for Preston. So at 8 o'clock, I think it's the 16th of June, it's a Monday. At 8 p.m. I will definitely be doing a tribute to Preston. Now let's hope we've had a verdict by then. And let's hope we've had the right verdict, because at the end of the day, we should always remember they are innocent until proven guilty. So we'll see what the jury have to say. Anyway, just got a few, if you're watching, Pauline, who sent me a Ko-fi. Thank you, very kind to do that. A lot of you thanking me for covering Preston's case. And yeah, I'm sticking with it till the end. And the thing is, when I get stuck on a case, and then everybody else jumps on the bandwagon, don't they? But I started with this case ages ago, and I'm sticking with it right through to the end. And that is what I do. This little baby has captivated me. I just cannot believe you could look at that little face and do any harm to it, or think about sex, And you know what? I'm sure there's a load of, I'm too old, obviously. I'm saying I would have loved to have adopted him. But there'll be loads of parents out there, younger people will be looking out, who would love a baby to care for, like Preston. So why these 2 twonks ended up with him, I have no idea. But the social services bear responsibility anyway. So yeah, thank you, Pauline, for the Ko-fi. I'm still just talking about my merchandise just quickly. This is my I'm not in the mood for twonks today because my little shop is on, but I may have to yet. But anyway, it's fine. It's working fine. And I've got, oh God, I forgot to, anyway, I'll do it another time. I always say I'll do it another time and then they end up not doing it. I've got a special Vicky Marie Chats bottle of wine to show you, and very soon the glasses that will accompany here will be coming, and t-shirts. So yeah, if you want like instead of a slumber party, it'd be like Vicky Marie Chat's t-shirt, wine glass, and wine. Why not? Oh dear. Anyway, so it's all just a bit of fun. That, I mean, we talk about true crime on this channel, on both these channels, because don't. And it's hard on the soul sometimes. It's dying or these days. No, it's lemonade. It's nice to have something, isn't it, when you get these. Yeah, we do need some levity sometimes, because what, we can't bring Preston back, but we can remember not only this case but other cases that we cover. They're full, are they? That's not the point of true crime, is it? But sometimes we have to maybe have a little bit of escapism, just so we stay sane, really. Anyway, I'm feeling a lot better today. Yesterday I was absolutely exhausted and drained with covering this case, and I don't mean that's ever going to stop me covering it. It just, sometimes that's how you feel. But I feel better today. I've had a good sleep. That always helps. So yeah, well as well, so I just hope, life's a trial, isn't it? Life's difficult. There's always something. As soon as you get one thing sorted out, normally something else pops up, doesn't it? It's like, that express rich tapestry of life, all part of the rich tapestry of life, isn't it? So you just have to keep going, don't you? One foot in front of the other. Okay, so thank you to things from my shop. I want to say thank you to those of you who've liked, subscribed, shared. Some of you have complained about the audio quality. I know that this computer is bobbins. I just keep saying it'll be resolved soon. It'll be resolved soon, and it will be. I'm just not sure exactly when. But so thank you. Sometimes the visual is glitchy, but a lot of you stick with it. I really appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you to my members, of course. Special thank you to them, to everyone who sent me a Ko-fi or supported my channel in any positive way, and especially through this case, because YouTube doesn't like this case. They won't promote your videos when you make, because it's unpalatable content, isn't it? Every video is pulled up for, limited ads, etc. So, but I don't care, it's not going to stop me reporting on Preston because YouTube don't like it. But it's very kind that I am covering Preston's case. Thank you. Okay. So Jacqueline is the only one in. Yeah, that's right. I think so. Do you know, it reminds me a lot of Sarah Sharif's case. I think these little ones are they just can't take anymore. Just can't take abuse that he have in front of him, allegedly. He's 13 months old. He'd only been there 4 months. I think this is something that always just reverberates with me. 4 months with these dads. Over 40 injuries, 3 hospital admissions, fractured arm, likely sex abuse, repeated months. So I like to have this sort of picture of in my head, and I don't know if it doesn't matter really. That this is how I like to think. I know not everybody's maybe of a religious persuasion, but I like to imagine that he was scooped up by the angels, taken away to a place where these horrible things won't happen to him. I certainly hope so. Um, and same with Sarah Sharif. Her little body just gave up in the end. There's a limit to how much sustained abuse, a tiny little child can take. Not according to the gruesome twosome. Nothing to do with them. They didn't do anything to Preston. They don't know why in just a short 4 months that they had care of him, all these weird things happened. All these weird photos were taken. All these weird videos were taken. They didn't do anything. Oh no, they have no clue what happened. Nothing to do with them. Nothing to see here. 4 months. That short period of time and all the things that happened to Preston. Things happen to babies. Babies do get banged on the head, or especially when they're learning to crawl, etc. They do bang their head. They are sick. Have you ever known a baby be as sick as often as they're saying that Preston was sick? They just were constantly clearing up vomit. It's, I just think, God, what, and on that fateful day, and just went to Jesus, I think. What was Jamie Varley trying to squeeze in his stomach? Like, it just doesn't even bear thinking about. But anyway, so let's get started. Let's get started with this. And so we started this morning, or the trial started this morning. Oh, sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. And, feel free to get angry. I mean, we've got to be sort of respectful, because YouTube doesn't like it if you're too disrespectful, even to twonks like this. But, feel free to get angry, because us to get through it, isn't it? We maybe didn't know Preston, but I think all right-minded people will be justifiably outraged by what was allowed to happen to him, not only by the Twonk 1 and Twonk 2, but by the social services, etc., who ignored the red flags, and family and friends and things. You've got a man like Jamie Varley, who supposedly was going around telling his friends he was suicidal, and he's caring for a little baby, and nobody does anything about it or takes him to one side. Anyway, the prosecution guy, Mr. Wright, examining John, he said to him, you say you have a close relationship, but you're also saying that your partner, Jamie Varley, never told you stealing. You can't close. Anyway, we've seen the distancing of John from Jamie a couple of times. He has specifically said that he thinks Jamie was not telling him the truth in the sex abuse, and I think the prosecution guy will let you see that during his cross-examination. But I think if anyone's going to turn on the other one, it will be him. It will be him. He's trying to make it look like it was all Jamie Varley, but I don't believe it was. The more I've gone into this trial, the more it's evidence I've heard, testimony I've heard, the more convinced I am that these two guys, they were in it together, and probably that was maybe even the main purpose of adopting a baby, to abuse it. Preston like a little toy to them for their pleasure in all ways. Jamie Varley treated him like a stress ball, didn't you know, he used him as a weapon against John to get John to come home. And when he thought, you know, he's a very jealous person, I think, Jamie Varley. You know, a lot of these things happened, you know, when John was working away or whatever. Suddenly he'd start getting these texts. You know, Jamie, just terrible, isn't it, really? And Peter Wright, KC, continued with his cross-examination. And he began by asking about the interviews in June 2025, almost 2 years after Preston died. So, yeah, it did take the police a long time, didn't it, to get, but thing is, in a case like this, well, you know, the only witnesses are the gruesome twosome and little Preston. And little Preston, well, he couldn't. So I think the police probably took quite a long time gathering their evidence carefully. So Mr. GF says he really tried to remember as much detail as he can regarding July the 27th. Now, 2023, I saw him being interviewed. I'd like to put all those interviews together. I'm just convinced he's not telling the truth. That's how it feels anyway. Now, don't forget everything I say on my YouTube channel. It is just my opinion. What matters here is what the jury makes of everything. The jury will make the final decision, not me. And I'm just giving you my opinion. Some of you will agree with it, some of you with it, you know, you'll just say that you disagree and be respectfully, do they? But I think somebody referred to me as a retard on one of the comments. I wonder if that was Jamie Varley. You know, oh right, okay, there you go. That's a sensible argument, isn't it? What are you, a retard? You know, these are the sort of people sometimes, you know, sadly, they just can't just put over their opinion without insulting somebody else. Anyway, Mr. Wright says, you and Jay, Mr. Varley, might be relevant towards his death. It might be a pointer towards his death. Yes, Jacqueline, I agree with you. They've had 2 years to get their story straight. Yes, the defendant says. Mr. Wright refers to the section of the police interview where Mr. GF is asked about the photos of Preston in his cot. I'm not going to go through those again. In his interview, Mr. GF said Preston had fallen asleep in that position. And Mr. Wright asked if he had forgotten. Now, I don't know if you saw video this morning with the testimony from yesterday, but there was DNA from GF found in Preston's car. It should have been there, the particular type of DNA that it was. But of course, GF is saying, no, he never sex abused Preston. He says he remembers seeing Preston in that position. I have not done the things that are alleged. I imagine people who had done the things that are alleged. I am now seeing these images 23 months later. So his claim was that he'd never seen them before when he was interviewed last year. And Mr. Wright asks, did it not stick with him seeing Preston in that position? The defendant says he just remembers seeing him in that position and telling his partner to lay the baby down. And he later used his bank statement to recall events of that day, he says. So don't forget. And Jamie Varley called him up to show him what a position, what a strange position Preston was in his cot. And he went in and he just looked at him for 30 seconds and then he went back downstairs and carried on cooking the roast dinner. That's what he said. Mr. Wright suggests that respiratory distress in this child was by that time common. Mr. GF says he never saw Preston with dribble coming from his mouth. That was the other thing. Dribble was coming out of Preston's mouth. They said it was dribble. What was it really? You know, your mind can't even go there, can it? Hi, Louise. So, Mr. GF says he never saw Preston with dribble or blue lips. So, the doctor, Dr. Gifford, said that she saw the photo, said that Preston had blue lips. He was seeing, not that he remembered, from actually seeing it in real life, but he was describing the picture that the police were showing him. Oh God, I think I'm going to have to get my Pinocchio out already again. He's, yeah, definite. But I think I am now. Sorry, I know it's alleged, and I should be saying innocent till proven guilty. I'm just saying how I feel. That's all. Just so don't forget, on my YouTube channel, we're chatting in the pub or something like that. I'm just giving opinions. I don't profess to be an expert. This is Vicky Marie Chats. It's not Vicky Marie Technological Forensic Expert, Detective, whatever. Not any of those things. I'm here to chat about true crime. That's all. And give opinions. They're just opinions. They're not facts. So was complicit, but ended up, now I've heard his defence. If that's the best defence he's got, officers. Oh, so in the interview, he's asked whether he was there when the photo was taken, and he told Mr. Wright asked if he was told the questions he would be asked about, as he wonders how he remembers 2 years later that it was a Sunday. It's true. I mean, if you might remember an occurrence 2 years ago. Oh, you remember when the baby was ill or whatever you might. So anyway, he says to him, how do you remember 2 years later it was a Sunday? And GF says, before the question, they looked it up on their phone, he says. Mr. Wright also says it was 4 days before Preston died. So that horrible, whatever happened in the cot incident was 4 days before Preston died. I mean, they couldn't even leave him alone for a week. 4 days later, they were doing it again and he was dead, or Jamie was anyway. The defendant says he was advised what topics would be discussed, but Mr. Wright reminds the court of the rules regarding confidentiality of discussions with legal advisors. In terms of how he answered the question, whether he was there when the image was taken, he says he was trying to be 100% accurate as to whether he was in the property or not. G wanted to jog his memory. He said he didn't know if he had seen the image before, and he didn't want to guess. Mr. Wright asked if he was playing for time in his responses. I didn't want to guess on something I knew was that they were suggesting I had done something, and I didn't want to get completely forgotten the event. Yes, the defendant says. He says he'd completely forgotten it. When Preston had blue lips hanging over the cot, and Jamie Varley, according to him, called him upstairs to look while he was cooking a roast dinner. It's just rubbish, that, isn't it? He said, "Sorry, I can't remember if I was there or not." He tells the court there was also an image in Mr. Varley's defence bundle which showed Preston in the corner of his cot. He also cannot remember if he was there for this photo. Mr. Wright asks, "Is this on you and Jamie had scratched your heads as to the circumstances in which Preston had died, and you also colluded about what you and he had been up to in the intervening period?" Jamie and I have never discussed the 23rd of July or those images. It was never discussed. Oh, come on. They've been living together for 2 years since this horrible occurrence. And this massive event, of their adopted baby dying, and they've never discussed it, never talked about it. The words sex assault or physical assault have never been uttered by one of us in all the time we've been under police investigation, he says. And Mr. Wright says, when start of August last year, one of the first instructions I gave my solicitor was to obtain my July 2023 bank statements. So Mr. Wright asks, "You thought there might be an answer contained in your bank statements? Or your bank statements might jog your memory?" "Yes, I knew it was a Sunday. I wanted to show what expenditure I'd done on that Sunday." The defendant says he did say Mr. Varley showed him a photo of Preston's bottom when he was simply unable to recall the events of that afternoon with any clarity, or was he vying for time? And Mr. GF said to recall. Then he was asked if the extent of Preston's dribbling in the last photo of him, oh God, I'll take his third, was unusual. So they were trying to say that was just him dribbling, but the prosecution is saying it was an unusual amount of dribble, Anyway, I can't dwell on it. The defendant says he was shown the photo in which Preston had blue lips and was surmising. He tells the court Preston would bounce up and down in his cot, and he had previously seen dribble marks on a mural. Oh God, whatever. Mr. Wright asks if there were any other images of Preston dribbling as much when he was in their care, and the defendant says he doesn't recall taking any such image. "You knew full well what had happened that afternoon," Mr. Wright says. The defendant says, "I provided context." Also said in that interview 100% he's been in that position too long and he needs to lie down. In his interview, GF said he hadn't seen all the photos at the time, but he may have seen one. "I remember seeing him over the bars of the cot. I said in an interview, I think I can recall seeing some of the images, one of the images, the first one in the scene looked familiar to me." The defendant confirms there was, as he was shown, a pixelated version. Honestly, seriously, any of you who've ever had children, Have you ever taken a photo of your baby's bottom to send to your partner? I mean, really? He tells officers he remembered being shown the picture in the early evening. He said his partner said he had changed his bum and took a photo as he was. The defendant says he went to change the baby's neck nappy about half an hour later after seeing the picture. He says he didn't know when the photo was taken, but he agrees it was an hour and a half before he was shown it. He says he was shown the photo when he returned from the co-op, and there he was at the co-op when that photo was taken. Mr. Wright Casey now asks the defendant about seizures. GF says Preston never had a seizure in his presence. He's always been sick, Preston. Just constant projectile vomiting, this poor baby, because of what they were doing to him, in my opinion. So he was sick in his cot again and staring, twiddling his hands, which he saw. The prosecution refers to a previous incident when Preston was taken to hospital and Mr. McGowan Fazakali left work to go to A&E. He says he was told that Preston had a seizure in the emergency department. On June 15, he was told Preston had another seizure while on a business trip to London. Mr. GF says he felt helpless as he was getting on the plane. See how these things always happen when John is working. Suddenly gets this barrage of messages from Jamie who's to get his attention. I think that's exactly what Jamie was doing. So he felt helpless. He was getting on a plane and he knew he had to turn his phone off. He says he got home very late and in the early hours. He never said he recorded it. He never showed me the video. I remember him telling me he was sick and brought up some chocolate butter time. You were aware of the advice that had been given to you about recording seizures, but then you failed to say to Jay, did you record it? No, I didn't ask if he recorded it. The next day, did you say, just like the hospital advised, did you record it? I didn't, he replied. So Mr. Wright says, videos sent to you. So don't get these. There were lots of weird videos sent. There was the video of, wasn't Preston trying to go to sleep? And they had the Mona thing playing in the background, Jamie did, and then he kept shouting boo and not letting him sleep. These are weird. I mean, there's no doubt that Jamie qualities as far as Preston was concerned. He liked making him uncomfortable, and the Dr. Gifford referred to Preston as having that frozen watchfulness when he was looking at it. He was terrified of Jamie, I think. That baby. Poor little thing. Lamb to the slaughter. And then he's sending all these weird, just Jamie being Jamie. God. So the prosecutor says, you knew from the Mona video sent you and the messages sent you that boy. The defendant says, no, you can see the videos I was sent. I was sent the boo video and 2 others of him smiling with his dad. And Mr. Wright says, that's why you didn't ask. If the seizure was recorded, you knew that little boy's condition wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was that it was that little boy was the subject of Jay's frustration with you. Jay gets frustrated with me to take it out. No, I wouldn't look at those clips in the middle of Heathrow Airport. And Mr. Wright asks about his concern regarding bruises on Preston. The defendant says he knew Preston was being seen by social workers, parents, and in the community. He had no qualms about safeguarding, he says. He says that the toy box video was shown as an example of how he acts at not used as a cover, as was suggested by the prosecution. So that was the video that Preston pulled the toy box on him, and Jamie showed that to just that's why he's got bloody million bruises on his forehead. Because, don't forget 40 injuries, including many bruises. More bruises than would be normal for a baby or a toddler, as we keep calling him. He wasn't a toddler. To Preston's arm on July the 5th. GF says he had squeezed or manipulated the arm. And Mr. Wright says, you knew precisely what had happened to that little boy at the previous night, didn't you? And Mr. Wright, or was inconsolable? And GF says, I went off to work and Jay was feeding him. I asked him about the events of the previous day. I asked him about when he was getting out of the car. I asked about the cop. And me and him, Mr. Wright now refers to the section of the GF's police interview where he's asked about the injury to Preston's arm. He told officers they went into Preston's bedroom because he was playing and making noises. And the prosecutor says both men said, quite sure what twizzled is supposed to mean. Would you agree that what you are describing was a fairly gentle event? And GS says, I didn't have hold of Preston. Jay had hold of Preston. I was, to the best of my knowledge, 23 months later, saying how Preston, isn't this the case that the men had put their heads together? And GF says, if I saw Jamie do something to his arm, I would have done something. I've not texted anyone. Jay took him to hospital. Jay, he says he was repeating the account third hand in the 5th, thinking there was something wrong with Preston's arm. So he asked his partner if anything had happened during the day or when he took him out of the car seat. Then he concluded what they had witnessed in the cot must have been the cause. He says he wouldn't cover when it came to the safety of his child. Of course he would. He's not plaything. He cared about as much for the safety as that boy as you'd care for the safety of a stuffed toy that you've got on your bed or something. So Mr. Wright asks about the normal routine where he would change the baby's first nappy of the day. And he says, are you simply giving a rehearsed account of question. It's horrible. But the defendant says he has never seen anything unusual other than in a photo he was shown by Mr. The defendant says he did not see any physical injury to Preston when he changed his nappy on July 27. He didn't see 5 linear bruises to his leg, and he wasn't in poor health in any way, apart from being sick after his breakfast. Oh, he was sick again. He agrees there was not a word about a seizure recorded on Mr. Varley's phone. And Mr. Wright asks, not then, not later that day, not after his death, not after you returned to each other's company? No, GF replies. So Miss 2023. And Mr. Wright says, so at that stage, September 2023, there you are, seeing that video for the first time. You leave the police station as inquiries are still being made, and you go back to speak to Jay. Was this not very much on your lips? Why did you not tell me there was a video? Defend. I recall walking back and Jamie mentioning the video to me and saying he had no recollection of taking the video. I remember him saying, John, I wouldn't have put him in the bath in that. I think it was because of what he was wearing. That's the response he gave me. Mr. Wright says, on his version of events, that video wasn't shown to you. That video that wasn't shown to you was at a time prior to him being in the bath. I'm not asking you to comment on that, but contextually, you say that when you came in and went in the bedroom, you say it was consistent with Preston having had a bath. Defendant, yes. And I remember saying this in the interview. I didn't go into the bathroom, so I didn't see the bath into Preston's room. I could just tell he just had a bath from what I saw of towels being on the floor. Preston just being in his nappy, that was the assumption I had. And Mr. Wright said, this is very important. Well, and the defendant says, it wasn't. I can't recall it being wet. So don't forget, Jamie said, didn't he, that he'd found Preston lying face down in the bath or sideways on. I remember it being quite I remember it being quite tight in terms of his locks. I mean, the locks of hair. Preston wasn't wet. I'll put it that way. Mr. Wright says, shall we try again? His hair wasn't wet, was it? It wasn't wet. So this is, the assumption that the assertion that the prosecution have made from the beginning is that this whole bath thing is a total, fantasy. It's Jackanory, isn't it? It's like making up stories. That's what Jamie came up with to try and explain got into breathing difficulties because of it. So Mr. Wright says, so then, as far as your impression that there had been a bath, what was it about the bedroom that led you to conclude there had been a bath? And the defendant says, Jamie told me information in the bedroom about what had happened, and also he reiterated a similar account of the same type of information in the car, saying he was in his bath seat, then he wasn't. He was quite short and snappy, and he was telling a bath happened and the towels were on the floor. I wasn't thinking as I went in the room, a bath hasn't happened. This isn't right. I just sort of dealt with what I saw. And Mr. Wright said, towels on the floor, dry hair, dry body, wearing a nappy, and being told he's been in his bath seat. And the defendant says yes. So he's making it clear he doesn't believe Jamie now. He was lifeless when he entered the room. So don't forget this, Twonk. He'd said that Preston was sitting up. Mr. Wright, he was already deceased, that boy. I strongly believe hospital. So the hospital did well to they did get hospital immediately. They didn't take him to the hospital immediately because they were too scared of getting caught out for what they'd done. But if they, what's happened there? If they, my phone just went a bit weird then. If they had, sorry, I've forgotten what I'm saying now. Yeah, if they had taken him to the hospital immediately, little Preston might have survived. You know, just might have survived, mightn't he? So, but they didn't. They left him on the bed breathing his last. They texted each other about the kayak that they were going to sell. And they just didn't give a shit because they thought he would bounce back like he has before they actually even said that. So, as to his condition and how it deteriorated, you described to the jury in respect of two matters: the application in that bedroom by Jay, and the defendant says, yes, I remember Jamie trying to help him on his belly and on his back, banging on his back. So he's trying to make Preston sick because he's trying to get up whatever he's put in Preston's stomach. That's what I think. Mr. Wright said, yet in the interview I will come to very briefly, 5:10 p.m. on the 11th of June, not a word was said about applying any sort of pressure to his ex-wife. That, and he says, okay, you say? So John doesn't know what to say. So he goes, okay, down, isn't he? Like, oh, okay, he doesn't want to go into it. Defendant, I've really tried to be as detailed as I could about what I saw when I went into the house and into Preston's room. I remember him trying to do CPR on his stomach. You don't do CPR on someone's stomach, do you, unless you're trying to make someone sick, I suppose. So Mr. Wright said, CPR on his stomach. Now, you may be inexperienced, but you told the jury you went on a course when you were a bar manager at university. And the defendant says, no, I attended the course when I was a restaurant manager prior to the university bar. Right. See, I was not involved. It's further up. Don't forget, this guy's got a bloody PhD and God knows what. He's supposed to be intelligent. He's got a degree in politics. He did a master's and a PhD and he was teaching and he's supposed to be an intelligent man. So clearly, you don't, when you're performing CPR on someone, it doesn't involve squeezing their stomach like a toothpaste, which is how it was described. That's he was trying to make Preston sick, wasn't he? Not trying to resuscitate him. Maybe then, yeah, Jackie trying to make him sick. I think we can imagine, don't you? Expert as to involve applying pressure to his stomach rather than his chest. Everybody knows that. You know, I haven't even done a course on CPR, but I know that you don't do it to the stomach, you do it to the chest. So the defendant said it was all very quick and very scary when I went into that house. And if I'm saying chest and stomach on a child whose body is this big, and he gestures to the size, I went round and asked Jamie, what do you want me to do? And he started banging on his back. Now, you know, regardless of what's happened here, we've seen Jamie, the video of Jamie at the hospital at the A&E. Imagine him. He's your last resort. He's the one trying to save you. God, rather. So Mr. Wright said, what you demonstrated on your own body was nowhere near the chest. And the defendant says, I might have used the word belly when I meant chest. Right. Oh, aren't they? So similar, aren't they? Such similar words. Belly and chest. Mr. Wright, something you didn't use, the word belly, when you were in an interview. So he didn't use that word in an interview. Mr. Wright says, he points to the police interview and says this feature is never mentioned. He suggests that Preston was lifeless when he entered the room. I think Preston was dead already, sadly. Well, not that it makes any difference. I think he'd already died. The reason they hung on going to the hospital is because Jamie Ades abused him, and God knows what was in that baby's stomach. GF says it's not the case that Preston was sitting up. It wasn't. Shame we didn't take a picture of it, isn't it? Or of everything else. Funny he didn't take a video of Preston being sat up when he was having his seizure. Supposedly, allegedly. So Mr. Wright asks about Jamie scooping sick from Preston's mouth. And GF says he saw his partner wipe Preston's mouth. Yeah. Mr. Wright asks if the account he gave in his interview was materially different to the account he has given in the witness box. He's only spoken about what he saw that day when he spoke to the officer on the day he died, in his interview and in court. You told the jury you remembered every detail of that day, Mr. Wright says, and the defender is hospital and holding him, and I've tried to play back every detail of that day. When I entered that house, it was quick, it was scary, and loads of things seemed to happen in a short period of time. Yeah, Louise, definitely. And Jacqueline, yeah. Right, continues. Or is this the position? This is the position that on that day in that bedroom, your worst fears had become a reality when that little boy was left alone in the company of your partner. And the defendant says, when I entered that room, I was absolutely terrified that I entered a scene I did not expect to see. I was shocked. I was trying to help him. Oh. And that's it. It's the end of Mr. GF's defence case. And they finished early today. They finished at 13:40. They didn't even break for lunch. And following the conclusion of GF's defence, the trial finished for the day, and it will resume on Monday, June the 8th. So nothing tomorrow, nothing to be heard tomorrow. So what's next? I wonder. So both the defence, Jamie's defence, as I think I've told you, I've got a playlist. There is a playlist on my channel. I might put that in a community post or something, because some of you perhaps missed days earlier on. I didn't cover this trial right from day one. I need to perhaps go through the videos I've done and put some dates on them. It's expected to last 6 weeks. I've been covering it at least for 2 weeks, and then it had already started, so it can't be that much longer left. There can't be that much longer left, is there, of this trial? But anyway, I'll be back on Monday to tell you what happens then. In the meantime, I'll be able to, because there's another couple of cases that I'd like to talk about, and I want to tell you about the new merchandise and things like that. I've been very consumed with Preston's case, and good, because, you know, I want Preston. Preston was a person. You know, he might have had a short life, and he might have had a bloody miserable life, or certainly the last 4 months of it were miserable. But this little boy, you know, he existed, and he deserved better. And he should be coming up celebrating his 4th birthday, you know, and he should be going to nursery and going to school and, you know, getting a girlfriend or a boyfriend or getting married or having children of his own one day. You know, that was all that's been taken away from this baby for the selfishness of these two twonks. I mean, I don't think you can deny that they're selfish, even if you don't believe that they did anything sex-wise to Preston. You know, they didn't ever put him first. This twonk, Jamie Varley, it's all about him, attention for him. He's that concerned about Preston that in the meantime of him first being interviewed, he's changed his look. You know, he's gone from his short dark hair, and now he's got the long hair, facial hair, blonde streaks. God, I bet they thought they had got away with it, because it went on for a couple of years before they were rearrested. Yeah, very selfish people, only caring about each other. Or Jane was just a drama queen. And he was a teacher. Oh, and of course, don't forget there's these allegations as well that he stole the prom money. That's something else that's supposed to, you know, he's really not a nice person. He's supposed to have stolen the prom money, isn't he, from the school? They've got their prom coming up. It might have been now, I don't know. But yeah, it's just... and this is what makes me doubt John as well, because at the end of the day, you know, you can tell the mark of a man by the company he keeps. And he's back with him now. Or he was. They may have separated now because they're in prison now. So I find it hard to be together. But yeah, he stuck with him, didn't he? Even, you know, so I think they're like, my personal opinion, these two men, it's like an unholy alliance. So they'll stick together because they've got too much on each other. And they're much of a muchness. You know, they're both similar, you know. They're similar characters. John is the younger one. Jamie's nearly 40, still acting like a 4-year-old. A 4-year-old wouldn't act like him. Yeah. How was this baby? You know, honestly, I keep going back to it. How were they ever allowed to have this baby? You know, you've got to think the social services, they bear a responsibility here, in my opinion. You know, they should never have been allowed to adopt this baby. There were too many red flags. Is it that easy to adopt a baby? I didn't think it was. Or is it like because they were a gay couple, were they put to the top of the list because it was fulfilling like the, I don't know, diversity sort of quota or whatever. And I just want to say now, and as I've said many times during this is not, they're not bad people because they're gay. They're bad people. It doesn't matter if they would get, there's bad people, you know, there's lots of couples, you know, man and woman couples that have been horrible to their children, even their biological children. You know, you've only got to think of like Chris Watts, the West, Rosemary and Fred West, all these. There's lots of people treat their children badly, sadly. So it's not because they're gay that they treated them badly. They're just twants, but it should have been weeded out. Should have been weeded out in the selection process. There'll be a million parents out there that probably there'll be a million parents out there surely that would have loved to Preston. There's people who are desperate to have babies, and there's beautiful Preston. Yeah, I think you're right, Louise. I think this couple, that on the surface, to be fair, they look perfect, didn't they? You know, upwardly mobile. You know, one's a teacher, head of year at school. The other guy's a really high flying salesperson dealing with $1 million contracts. You know, they're dressed nice. They're sort of, you know, I suppose on the surface, yeah, they look like they would make a good parents for this little boy, but and good manipulators, of course. Yeah, thing is, people do get taken in, don't they, by psychopaths all the time. I always come. I use Ted Bundy for an example of everything because he is a prime example of how these psychos can live amongst us. You know, he was volunteering on a rape crisis line. Ted Bundy. Everybody thought he was great. You know, he was a great guy. There he is volunteering for this rape crisis line, and in the meantime, he's out there murdering women, you know, girls. I think with Ted Bundy, like to volunteer on a rape crisis line, that's almost like vicarious pleasure you can get from that, isn't it? Because you're listening to people recount girls recounting a terrible event that's happened to them. And that he must have got off on that, mustn't he? It's like, you know, and the knowledge of how clever he was doing all the things he was doing. And then they get off on people's misery, don't they? So, but yeah, quite often monsters, psychopaths, they present the most. Look at Hugh Edwards. Look at Hugh Edwards. You know, Mr. Prissy, Hugh Edwards, married with his 5 kids, going around talking about religion and, you know, in all the meantime, God knows, because he'll have been doing a lot more things as well. He only got caught, you know, in his 60s. He's been probably done terrible things before that. So yeah, they walk amongst us, sadly, and they are convincing. And we think we wouldn't be convinced, but we probably would because they just, you know, they don't look like what they are, do they? So okay, so yeah, I will be back to talk about other cases before next Monday. But next Monday, I will be talking about Preston as soon as the trial resumes. Thank you so much for caring about Preston. We say a little prayer for. I think about Preston all the time at the moment while I'm doing, you know, following this trial. He's literally, when I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about him. When I go to bed at night, I'm thinking about him. I'm just hoping that somewhere You know, if there's any justice in this world or the next, somewhere somebody is giving this little boy the love and the care that he deserves. Okay, thank you. I will see you really soon, and in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Thank you so much for caring about this little one. Well, I shouldn't say little one, that's what John calls him. Thank you so much for caring for Preston. Bye. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, all of you that